Thank you. I'm conscious that we've sat through quite a lot of content this afternoon, so I want this to be a breezy panel because I actually think this could be the big opportunity of the next decade, right? There is a significant amount of trade spend about to move into the digital space, and that is creating a huge opportunity for ad tech, for retailers, and for the service there who are involved in that, and the technology companies are involved. So let's start off with this conversation because I'm actually pumped about retail media. I've been writing quite a lot about it, but it's still very nascent, still very early doors. So like, Jamie, do you start with you going in terms of how would you define the retail media space? And by the way, Criteo, who are not a sponsor today, are intent in describing this space as commerce media, which annoys me because why do the Americans have to brand everything? I want to be. Why can't the Irish say retail media and that's it?
Yeah, I think retail media is a really interesting one, and it is, the buzzword. Everyone's talking about it. It's growing, 82% year on year. It's worth about 50 billion now. I think the reality is it means lots of different things to lots of different people and brands. I think, if you look at the likes of Amazon, it's media driving near and within the Amazon ecosystem, but it's not just media. And actually, there's an interdependency across the entire e-commerce and retail value chain. And to use the kind of Amazon phrase, it's all about the flywheel effect, right? So you need to have the right assortment, you need to have the right commercial aspects in place, from a pricing elasticity to promotional effectiveness. You have to have the content to drive that flywheel in order to then target, attract, and convert those customers.
Yeah, Liz, in the conversation you were talking about that this is much a bigger conversation than just serving ads on a Tesco website. There's a lot more involved in this. The logistics part of it, the integration, the technology side, the analytics, the attribution. So there's a lot more to be seen here, than just let's move the programmatic spend across to the retailer site.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah. If you think of it from a grocer point of view, their traditional business is around their stores, right? So the media within a store would be things like end caps and price promotions. And after COVID, which created a lot of acceleration around people having to buy their groceries, say, online, that has shifted audiences into those environments. So retail media needs to kind of evolve to to adapt to those digital environments, which takes a little bit of a bit of test and learn, because from a retailer point of view, your core task is to make sure that the consumer gets what they want on the site. They don't want to be, irritated by a bad user experience. It has to be complementary to their, joint business plan with their CPG partners. So it's nascent, but I think the kind of financial opportunity that we've seen, especially with Amazon, is meaning that all of these retailers are really, really keen to get in on the act.
Are they worried that they might lose spend? Is that motivation for what they're doing as well? In the fact that Amazon has turned around and built a $40 billion business basically out of nothing, based on their first-party data and the e-com piece they've built?
Well, I think Amazon is a little bit different because they have more of a mature advertising offer with some of the fire. And it's not quite the same as, say, a Tesco. So, but certainly from the point of view of 68% of their profit coming from the advertising business, it's very compelling for the likes of a Walmart to, have, I think their proportion is 12% of their profit coming from their advertising business, from, what's actually, I think, 0.4% of their revenue. So you can kind of see how those maths start to create a bit of momentum in the market around building their own solutions. And grabbing some of the pie, really.
Yeah. Nicola, we'll talk about the Heineken, the brand piece first. From your perspective, why is this such a big transformation? I mean, obviously, trade budgets have been spent with retailers for years, in-store merchandising, magazines, TV, even digital on their own website, but nothing that's kind of joined the dots in terms of like the serving of ads to the outcomes. Why are you as a brand interested in shifting the spend to the retail media space?
Yeah, I mean, you're right in terms of we've been investing in retail media for years, whether it's come from offline channels as well as online channels. But I think in terms of how it's evolving, it's very much driven by the data piece as well. So particularly for a brand like us, where Ollie referenced kind of the first party data piece, that's not kind of a rich area for us and a growing area, but ultimately for us to kind of reach relevant audiences, we do need to work with second party data. And I guess the types of retailers that we're talking about in this instance, they're full of kind of super rich audience data that can really help us like reach the relevant target audience, but crucially kind of at that point of purchase. So the ability to reach relevant audience, but then also see actually how the return that we're getting back from that, I think is what's driving it. And I guess it's still in its infancy, definitely, when you kind of compare, say, a Tesco to the Amazons or kind of other parts of the, I guess, like ad space. But I guess there's a lot of influence from brands to these retailers to really up their game, because what they're kind of seeing elsewhere or expecting from other parts of their marketing spend.
Perhaps we'll talk about why is ad tech interested in retail media? Obviously, you can smell the money. I'm only joking. Obviously, it's for the good of the industry. But what role does ad tech have to play in this? I mean, this is because it's such a nascent space. Like, you know what I mean? A year ago, it was. I mean, obviously, Amazon has been building this business, but to Liz's point about retailers sort of like looking to make money from advertising, because it goes to the bottom line, is it? Like, it's like, I mean, there's not an awful lot of work you need to do to serve ads and make it work. But obviously, we'll go into the specifics of how that could work from a privacy point of view in a few minutes. But I want to talk about what role ad tech plays now, or even the mad tech space. So how do you see the role you guys play?
So, I mean, the role we play and the way I look at this, and I think you guys have called a lot of this right, the scale of this is an opportunity for retailers specifically, but also us as an industry. It presents a really interesting, the best way I've seen it described is looking at this as the third wave. So search being initially the first sort of driving wave that's really pushed digital media and digital spend into this space. Social coming up and sucking up a lot of those dollars. We've already talked about Meta and the share that they already win in this space. And then retail presenting a massive opportunity, both for the retailer themselves, but also for brands and for the brands who are actually trying to access these audiences. So ultimately, us as a platform, we see ourselves as really supporting that journey, really working with these retailers who are, as as we've all acknowledged, this is nascent for them. It's new. There's a whole disparate range in terms of development and kind of where they are on that retail media journey, that I think that we are well placed as an industry. I'm not sort of singling out Pubmatic here, but we are well placed as an industry to really support these retailers and help them really get to grips with what this opportunity is and really start to grow their footprint and really start to bite into some of that Amazon money that they're taking at the moment.
But is it all top of the funnel at the minute? It feels to me like it's just reaching frequency for CPGs, like we want to hit new audiences that we've never seen before. Is that where we're starting? Because I want to sort of delve into the performance aspect in it, but is that where like the ad tech sort of integrations help first, Gemma?
I think it's a combination, to be honest. So I think referencing the earlier panel, when I get a briefing from any of the clients who are talking about awareness driving through retail media, I literally want to bang my head on the table. Really, like it shouldn't be an awareness play within retail media. It should be a performance play. So because actually, the real I would say, opportunity for a brand is actually the amalgamation of the data, right? So first of all, being able to look at like truly transactional-led data, being able to look at, up, cross-selling, switching, alternative alternative purchases, together with contextual semantic data sets, it's very, very powerful. And being able to do that in category and out of category, is very powerful from a customer journey standpoint. So for me, I think that's the starting point. But absolutely, many of these retailers, they are starting with their Holy Grail right now, which is their first-party data sets. Building that out, monetizing that data because it is a high growth opportunity for them as a business. But actually, it's going to be about extending out. So we're going to see more addressable advertising. We're going to see more connected advertising. So actually, I think that it will be more and more, awareness-led as we move forward.
But if we're to do that, is talk about full funnel attribution. There's so much you need to connect into it. This is the part where I start to, if it's going to scale, I think it needs to be performance-led. But to be performance-led, you need to kind of integrate it into logistics, right? The back end, all those parts are not assembled yet. It's very, I know you're working with a couple of clients at the minute who are trying to build that so it will work for them, especially the CPG clients.
Yeah, exactly. And, to the point around the different components that retailers need, that may be one in terms of offering the inventory out to a marketplace. I would argue that a lot of them are still at the point of kind of doing it the old school way, maybe of having the ad server do that on site and append first-party data because it's so sensitive as well that you don't want it out in the ecosystem. But yeah, to your point, there are a ton of other logistics behind it, like billing, and we've learned that from some of the work we're doing with grocers across Europe, that when you dive into it and you work out all the processes and all of the different components like campaign management, audience segmentation, insights generation, through into the campaign optimization, all of the stuff that we would see as being kind of ad tech normal. But then you do have the billing component, which, a lot of brands, when they do in-house media buying, realize what a pain it is, right? So you have to, and then it's linked as well, of course, to, your supply chain. So to start thinking about, how you personalize against, certain, the data you have around what's selling where, etc. So the infrastructure and the architecture needed is I think being underestimated at the moment.
But when we build that though, Nicola, do you think that you'll see that shift to spend, or are you going to spending a ton of money with trade, that it will move into sort of an addressable execution layer? And you were talking about how your team, you've got an internal team who kind of manage a lot of the listings, e-com listings. They're going to have more hands in that when, as Liz said, when the infrastructure is properly built.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of building on what you were saying, just in terms of the levels of things that you need to think about when you're really kind of trying to drive in that sales environment, it is absolutely kind of the right product availability and kind of like thinking about that, being close to actually what's on promotion at that time, what are you trying to push, and understanding all of those complexities. And therefore, there is a sort of an element of kind of control that's needed kind of from a supplier perspective to be really close to that and being able to kind of push the right things at the right time. But going back to kind of like, where in the funnel this is useful, like absolutely it is the performance element of it, but some of the richness of the data, going back to what I was saying before, like actually knowing that we can reach beer buyers or premium beer buyers or lapsed cider buyers or whatever, and pushing that out kind of further up the funnel to engage with kind of the right consumers is also really interesting, and where ideally we want to, as a brand, kind of get to through more of our retailer partnerships.
Would you ultimately want to link that back to warehouse sales? Because that's the Holy Grail, isn't it? Like the holy attributions. Like I spend £1 million on Tesco and I'm going to get 5 million sale because I know that. Because as soon as our ad campaign ran, I was shipping a load of 6 pallets of Heineken beer for my mates out in Carmacross, loaded in my minivan and headed down the road with it. Like, so that advertising clearly worked on me because I just spent £10,000 on beer. Just hypothetical, I don't spend £10,000 on beer, by the way. But that's the Holy Grail, really, isn't it?
I was just going to say, so within WPP, we did a piece of research where we're looking at, for an average brand with a portfolio of 100 products that are being sold within a retailer, on average, that is 84,000 optimizations that have to be made every single week. 84,000 individual optimizations that have to be made within the digital shelf in order for those products to be seen and therefore be sold. No human can do that. It has to be augmented with like machines and mad tech, ad tech, retail infrastructure. So absolutely, within, given that this is retail media, we need to be thinking about, the audience, the addressability, the consumer demand aspect that is tied directly into the supply chain and the availability aspects.
That leads to the next question, Babs, and you can maybe answer this because obviously in display, programmatic display, we've had issues with privacy, and
one or two.
One or two. So how do you think that will shake out in the retail media space, particularly with retailers who are super sensitive around data and feeding that data into Bidstream, which would probably, because it's like proprietary data, do you see, is that where ad tech could add value, like the likes of clean rooms, working with yourselves? That's a key piece of technology that will come in and help fill that gap.
So, short answer, yes. And I just wanted to pick up on something Gemma said, but I genuinely believe that, yes, retail media where we are today is very much performance-led. We are at the point, because you are dealing with commercial transactions, point of sale activity, all of that lends itself to that performance-led budget. And it means that as a brand, you can very easily, especially if you get that feedback with the data and you can build in that sort of back-end closed-loop attribution, you can see the value of your marketing spend, and that can inform future activity. But I think if you then look broader than that, if we as an industry want to grow the opportunity in retail media, there is the brand piece. There is the attracting beer drinkers who aren't currently Heineken beer drinkers. Retailers sit on that data today. They have access to all of the transaction data of the users who are coming, or their customers who are coming to their stores and transacting within their stores, being able to access that data, being able to utilize it to build a whole through the funnel marketing campaigns to actually understand how do we build consideration, how do we drive the sort of activity that you're probably doing now in store with trials and free coupons, all of that activity, we can start to see that transition into digital. And then if you come onto the data piece, obviously there is a huge responsibility on us all to be very mindful of how we use that data. Retailers have spent years building the trust with their customers. I've sat in rooms with retailers where they have been pretty much advertising isn't core to their business is selling products. Anything that disrupts that relationship with the customer is a massive risk for them. And so the idea that we can prove to them, or the challenge to us is proving to them that we will be justified custodians of that data. We won't abuse it. We will work within frameworks and with partners that will make sure that data is utilized properly and ties into their wider marketing mix, or ties into their wider business operations, so they can start pushing, they can start using that data to both drive the actual sale value, but also understand how they then use that with their back end and make sure that their distribution is working to tie into where their sales are driving. All of that, I think, sort of ties in. I didn't want to jump in and pick up on the performance bit.
It's a great debate, though, but that privacy piece that's important. Like we talk about it, that's going to be a key feature of this going forward. Because I just get the feeling that Tesco's and Sainsbury's and Dunnes Stores and Carrefour and whoever else is involved in this really wants to make money, they are super concerned about a data breach that might cause them unbelievable pain and disaster.
Yeah, and many of them are having to go back and revisit how they are getting their opt-in sort of, they have to be very explicit about what they're going to do with that data. And that, I think, in the kind of consumer consciousness and such, I know we all tend to like navel gaze and think about these things a lot, but you know, the man on the street is aware of cookies, right? And they're aware, you know, there was a recent advert from Apple that was kind of very in your face about privacy. You know, this auction.
The lad chasing people around.
No, there was one about this girl at an auction, and it's like her data's going to the highest bidder.
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
And,
That was
you
me
know,
bidding in that.
Yeah, there's a few like that. They just, you know, are kind of making people a little bit more cautious. And then if you consider, especially with loyalty card data, how much you know, most of it's grocer, but there's quite a lot of deterministic data there as well, and modeling, etc. As a consumer, you want that to be protected, and that's why I think being in an open ecosystem makes me a bit more nervous. And I think as a result, we will end up with inevitable walled gardens here, where it's not shared outside.
But I think that's kind of where ad tech needs to kind of innovate smarter, like, so things like conversational media, for instance, like bots, bot-powered advertising, which helps consumers get to a point of sale. The other one is like live streaming, right, which is still nascent, but in China it's shifting hundreds of billions of dollars of product. That's the exciting part around this space. I think we haven't really, like, I mean, we're trying to put the framework together, but the stuff that we can build on top will be really exciting from a brand perspective, from an agency perspective, and from an ad tech perspective.
Yeah, I often use the phrase, the e-commerce sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Like, I mean, we do need to be looking to China. Granted, privacy is very different. You know, their approach to privacy is very, very different. But actually, in terms of, I would say, the ecosystem, so, you know, to your point around walled gardens, the interoperability between these walled gardens, I definitely think that's where we're going to move to longer term. I think that the challenge, you know, near term, so like from a Horizon 1 standpoint, is for a brand is how do they connect up these different walled gardens when you've got auctions and algorithms that are working in very different ways, whether that's the A10, whether that's Polaris. You're having to optimize to a very different beat of the drum in each of these retailers. How do you sync those together? How do you attribute effectively? How do you drive full funnel media in a kind of connected way based on portfolios and based on the jobs to be done in those given retailers? So I think it's very tricky for a brand to navigate in this space.
That's a good point. Do you think that for like spend to scale, we're going to have to standardize, particularly measurement? Totally.
I think personally, and I'd love to hear from you guys too, I think that this is going to be an economies of scale game. Like, you know, right now, performance within individual retailers is very fragmented, and some of the spend, whilst it's growing, it's still very small for many brands. In order to really be able to, you know, optimize effectively, it is going to have to be connected, full funnel.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who you're talking about. I think CPG, that scenario, the power has always been with the grocer. Their customer is key. So where I started with this a few years ago would have been more from a brand perspective of, well, I'm giving a ton of money over to these grocers, and they're saying, well, you're going to buy digital assets on our properties, and say, well, what are you giving me back, right? Where's reporting? Prove the value, you know. So I think there's been a drive to kind of up the game from the likes of CPGs, you know, in that respect. But if you move into a different vertical, it's something else again, you know. So to your point about how you define all of this, you know, we probably will end up having to sort of sub-categorize these things, because for me, retail media for a grocer is very different to retail media for someone like, say, Screwfix, who could see an opportunity around monetization of their assets because of their customer relationships. So it's at an early stage, you know, from that point of view.
If you have shifting spend from ton of money, 7%, I believe, Gemma said, of marketing spend into sort of the programmatic channel. That's quite a significant amount to spend to shift across. I mean, like, when we talked about that standardization thing, do you need to see standardization? Because to the point that all these walled gardens are going to have their own attribution, customized attribution, that's going to be a pain for a brand like yourself trying to kind of buy across all these fragmented marketplaces.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, at the moment, like with some of the retailers we work with, we don't get any data back. So it's kind of, it's almost like you have to invest in certain things from a commercial perspective and just to sort of, you know, if you think keep the lights on. But there's a huge opportunity where we potentially like unlock, you know, additional budgets for kind of working with the retailers if they are being much more transparent. And you need that level of consistency to almost assess like where is you getting the biggest bang for your buck effectively.
Babs, we'll leave that. Is that something you know, when you have drinks with your ad tech buddies, i.e. me and a few other people, do you talk about standardization? Is that a thing that you say, you know, if we want to make this really work, then we need to think about talking to the grocers, talking to the marketplaces, and talking about an attribution model that works across. And considering here now, this follows on from our conversations all day about measurement and post-ID, post-cookie, privacy first. But will we have some kind of standardization model will have to grow this market?
I've been nodding my head as you've all been talking because, yeah, I cannot see a world where we scale to the full value of the opportunity if there isn't some level of standardization. I think the massive headache that we would introduce if you, as a brand, were then presented with multiple different opportunities, how you spend your money, how do you judge the performance on one partner versus another partner, how do you build a whole sort of relationship within a retail media marketplace, and how do you understand the return from that if you are then comparing apples with oranges in a completely different context. So some level of standardization, some agreement on what we are measuring and what we are as an industry able to pull out and pass back to the brands who are spending the money, to then give them the confidence to reinvest it. And from the retailer side, you know, giving them the ability to realize the true value of their data. So understanding that A, it will be managed and used correctly, and B, that they can see that actually giving access to that data, it isn't abused, it isn't sort of misused in the marketplace, and they can see that return coming back. So then, you know, their ability to continually open up and continue sharing with their selected partners will continue to grow.
I mean, I think that's why this is an interesting space, because if you do it right, you'll set the standard.
Cha-ching.
And then everybody will have to follow, right? Because you're right, as a CPG, or, you know, you will need, you know, to be able to compare. So those that do build a good solution, to use let's square back to the start of the day, you know, they're looking to harvest the avocados before they go off, right? Just make sure I have the perfect avocado and nobody else is going to want an avocado.
Jesus, avocados is like the theme of the day, really. On that note, and honest to God, we're going to go and have a drink now in the MGC, is this, Rachel? Downstairs first, because the lovely Protestants who run this church allow you one drink before we can go out and drink elsewhere. But thank you for our Methodist friends who built this beautiful venue. And thank you for our panel. By the way, do come and talk about this, because it's a fascinating space. And actually, we need the industry to talk about these very subjects. Like, it needs, if we build this right, this could be an amazing opportunity for everybody involved. So thank you, everybody involved today. Thank you very much.